So some things that I've noticed lately is that the internet is definitely a different place. The world is certainly a lot different after COVID, but a lot of these platforms now that social media has always been kind of cringe. People are just posting really stupid stuff, sharing stuff about their dog, posting stuff about their food or whatever, or really insignificant things. But even though we looked at that as being cringe at the time, it's almost become nostalgic now. But that's not really the way that most social media is now. Most of it, people posted stuff like that generally on Facebook. And if you post something on Facebook now, the way that they have basically globally integrated all the other stuff on your activity feed, if you post anything that's not safe in some way, your friends, your allies are not likely to see it, but your enemies are more likely to see it. So it becomes, sadly, most people feel that it's extremely risky in order to post something on Facebook. And I know patterns too. I work in technology, and I've also, without going into it deeply, I've done a lot of research into how intelligence agencies kind of manipulate public opinion, manufacturing consent. That all the way goes back to Noam Chomsky, and way back before that, way back to Edward Bernays. But what they're doing now would make, Edward Bernays looks like a schoolboy, and they're like, PhD assassins with what they can do with propaganda now. But I've been really, since I have kind of this nexus in these two particular areas, it makes me notice certain things that other people might not notice. And, it's not really like you have to look, it's not like super unobvious either. For instance, if I have some kind of a technical issue, let's say I'm posting something on a particular website and the website just, won't take my credentials, I can't log in or something like that. Or, my account, whatever. Every time I would rant about that and I would complain about that on Facebook, there would be some other weird accounts that would show up there and they would say, oh, something like that happened to me too. But I talked to this guy and he solved everything, or they would oftentimes post a link. They're phishing attempts or, some kind of, it's some kind of attack where they're trying to get me to basically click something that's shady. So I recognize these and I'm like, okay, after you see them a little bit, you go and then you click on the profile and the profile is suspicious. It has maybe some followers, but doesn't really have much content. You can tell it's not really like a real person's profile. So the funny thing is now, I just get weird ones from just weird random haters posting on just certain stuff that I do. And it's like, you have no idea where it's coming from, but it's just haters. And if you are aware of how much what some people call it the deep state, some people call it the intelligent state or whatever. This is not like a super duper political channel. I go into lots of other different stuff, but you've basically got this under edifice system that, has basically taken the civilian government hostage. And the civilian government is a government in name only in a lot of ways. And, this real, underground superstructure is really what runs the show. And they do an enormous amount of things in order to push you, to prod you, to give you certain information, less information, to make social media a certain way so that it is a predatory, dopamine, kind of drip feed, loop continuous mechanism that just keeps you hooked but doesn't really give you any value. And for sure, a lot of that is, capitalism. A lot of that is human nature, people taking advantage of a situation. For sure, there's a lot of that as well. But just with the way that we have the way that the culture is, the way that a lot of the, more eloquent, music and art. You can look back and see how the CIA basically, funded art. Funded ugly art. And I mean, architecture, it's the same way. I mean, it's not an accident, in my opinion, that we are just immersed with so many things that are just absolutely disgusting. Fat pride, like almost all of the the triggers, the incentives, what society is basically trying to tell you to do is trying to push you in the opposite direction of being a self-empowered, ambitious, powerful, empowered human being. That is not what they want. They want you to be like Lizzo. They want you to be like, one of these other mainstream, idiot, weak, type 5 diabetes. And basically, the food, everything, that's what pushes you into. You have to go very, very far outside of the mainstream in order to, not become, the standard American. So, yeah. And one thing and when you do that, like, I mean, lots of people are talking about, like, if you get fit, people hate on you in a lot of different ways. Now, this is true, but they will also hate on you if you do something else. Like, if you try to put things out that, you try to do creative works. You're one of the only people, you're trying to do something creative, you're more likely to just get somebody to hate on you. And that's one of the reasons why we're in a dark age, other than the fact that, people are illiterate and can't read. But it's not just that. And I think there is some of that with people. But I think that there is basically like I don't know how widespread it is, but there is absolutely a lot of bots that are out there that are basically just feeding you bullshit comments in order to just discourage you and make you not go farther, make you not push forward. And I mean, you look at the world, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Mass apathy. Massive amounts of people just can't find any kind of meaning in life. And let's think about this a little bit more. If people are having 70, 80, 90% of their interactions online, not in person, and they have a drive to want to do something, but they can't necessarily, the only thing they can really get is discouragement for the most part, then it's going to be very hard for that person to, actually push through. And I mean, I just look at it like it's one other attack vector out of a series of different attack vectors from, the conspiracy edifice, whatever you want to call it, the whole entire structure of the blob. I mean, it would be just calling it like the deep state is shorthand because it's way bigger than that. It's global and it's even beyond that. But I mean, they're doing basically everything that they can to make it so people are not strong, self-sufficient, intelligent. They're doing everything they can to dumb them down. So this is just one more bullet, in the chamber of all of their attack vectors that they're throwing at us. And I mean, it's just one thing that I've noticed. So if you can do that, you can demoralize so many darn people. You remember if you see Yuri Bezmenov, who was the guy from the Soviets, who basically talked about how that was like a lot of the stuff that they did. I'm not going to put clips in this video, but look up Yuri Bezmenov if you haven't seen it. So many of their operations were simply to just demoralize people and then keep them from trying, keep them alone, keep them in ghettos and stuff like that. So, there's a couple of different ways of responding to this. You can respond to it and say, okay, there's no point in trying. I might as well just, rot, because I'm telling you, once things get really crazy with AI and you can basically just put yourself into any kind of simulation, anything else, you're going to be done with the real world anyway. If your world has no meaning, you can't find any meaning in the real world, what happens when the virtual world becomes that amazing? You're not going to want to live in the real world. And then if you're not living in the real world, you're basically already dead. So I don't mean to be too callous about that, but that's basically how I tell myself. And that's how I get myself to look at it. Anyhow, I was trying to talk about bots, but I'm so positive. Actually, I mean, it's come out that they have like all these gigantic demoralization bot farms that are there just simply to discourage you. And for a lot of people, it's going to work, but you need to have the opposite. In my opinion, you need to have the opposite reaction. When you get your haters and, the bots or whatever, you need to see them and you need to know that the fact that they are targeting you and the fact that they're doing that, even if they are haters, it shows that you have something. It shows that they're threatened by something. Now, there are some people who just put out completely terrible stuff and things need to be critiqued, and that's not necessarily hating, although there's not really much incentive for people to be, nice on the internet, so it's probably going to come out as hating. So, I mean, there's a fine line there. Every situation is different, but regardless, the demoralization campaign is a real thing. It's going to demoralize a lot of people, and they really, really, really should not let it happen. So anybody else notice this? Have anybody else gotten any bots, any weird accounts that are just like hating on you or whatever, make no sense, and then you look at them and like, this is a freaking bot? Yeah, let me know in the comments below. Anyhow, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.